I just didn't feel in a singing mood.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of cold in here. You want your vocal cords to be warm.
We both have sweatshirt.
I'm just bummed that you're wearing a sweatshirt because the shirt that you wore today is fire.
Well, that means that
I
the people.
hate for all 5 people that are watching this right now
that means
not
that
get to see this T-shirt that you
if
were
the people
rocking.
want the shirt, they can go to the Pro Football Focus YouTube page and look at our college pick of the week and our NFL trend of the week, and they can see the T-shirt I was wearing.
That's true. Or you could check out the SI gambling show where you are sporting this shirt as well. If you want to purchase it, you could go back to 1997 and go to one of those skater.
Not true. You're normally good at this stuff, but you're actually wrong.
What's a skater shop? I don't know.
Hot Topic.
Hot Topic would be right on. Yeah, that's where you could purchase it. It's pretty fire. All right, we are brought to you by mybookie.ag. Of course, I am George Chahrouri, and I am in the presence of a T-shirt wizard himself, Eric Eager. So let's start with the 3 questions for this week. So we're on to week 7. First one is what?
Yeah, so the first question we have is, will we derive any clarity about the AFC South this week?
I guess sort of, right? Because Houston could be down and out if they just get crunched. Deshaun Watson is teetering on.
Speaking of crunched.
Yes, teetering on the precipice of not being healthy enough to play football. And Indy, if Indy loses to the Bills, see you guys later.
It's over, Johnny.
I think Tennessee. People are writing off Tennessee a little bit early, but they, if Jacksonville wins convincingly, they could be right back in the driver's seat, and they're in that division, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what people are projecting here. If you look at my bookie, Jacksonville to win the AFC South is plus 110, so basically just a little bit under 50%. Houston's plus 180, which I think is a little too short. Tennessee plus 330, that's probably the best value of them. And then Indianapolis plus 2,500. If you're looking for a shot in the dark, a little amount of money to make a lot of money, I think that one's a good one, just because after this week, one of the teams is going to be 4-3, maybe 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
2 of the teams are likely going to be 3-4. I think Tennessee probably loses to the Chargers in London.
They're heavy underdogs.
And then Indianapolis is a more than a touchdown favorite against Buffalo, which we'll talk about later. They could be 2-5. Not terrible straits for Indianapolis to be in, given all the injuries they've had and the kind of acclamation of Andrew Luck back into the fold.
Yeah, I mean, Indy's tough thing about Indy is they should beat Buffalo, but that means nothing. That means absolutely nothing, right? They're still a pretty flawed team.
Right, but I do think, though, if you look at other parts of Indianapolis this season, right, the loss to Houston was a loss, but it could have very well been a tie. It could have very well been a win. So I agree that their win against Buffalo doesn't tell us a ton, but what it does tell us is, how they end up playing will tell us something, and also the previous. They're not a 1-5 team, I don't think. That's what I'm trying to say.
Was it 2 weeks ago that we said Tennessee was a good bet to win this division, and they heard that and dropped themselves off the top of a building?
Weirdly, their odds have not changed substantially since. So I still think they are a decent, because when you look at the construction of their season so far, they have a win. They have 2 wins against Houston and Jacksonville. The 1 win at Jacksonville, I do think that will be big. If Indianapolis is as bad as they've looked so far, Tennessee has 2 games against them as well. So our simulations have always liked them relative to the market.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I think if I had to bet on this division, I would take Tennessee at plus 330. All right, next question. This one is interesting because basically the NFL is all offensive driven.
Yep.
So the question is there a team this season, sort of like maybe the Bills from 2017? I hesitate to say 2000 Ravens because they were so great defensively, but basically a team where the defense is going to get you to the playoffs and make you a force in the playoffs. In other words, it's not just about your quarterback.
Yep.
Do you think that team exists?
No. So I look at the Super Bowl, if you do our simulations, look at the teams with the best Super Bowl odds. You have the Patriots, Rams, Saints, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. It's not until you get to Baltimore and Minnesota do you have teams that are driven by their defense.
You are just you can't stop. You just can't stop. You hate Kirk Cousins so much.
I actually don't hate Kirk Cousins,
but I hate Kirk Cousins like I hate the shirt you wore today.
Wow,
you put Joe Flacco and Kirk Cousins having an amazing season behind a tinfoil offensive line.
That's exactly it, though, right? So, like, Flacco actually has played okay at times this season, but neither one of us are going to say, oh, he's going to be a good quarterback come season's end. Kirk Cousins has played terrifically. He's been a 97 or something passer when pressured. Those things regress, right? So I don't put him on the same plane as Joe Flacco. What I'm saying is that team is considered a defense-first team, and then their offense is just trying to get to their defense's level. That's mostly what I'm saying.
I think that may be what people think, but people are dumb, really dumb, and Minnesota's offense is certainly the driving force behind whether they – so, like, if you're telling me Minnesota makes it to second round of the playoffs, it has nothing to do with their defense. It's because their offense is playing great. Would you disagree?
I would say to go that far, it would be because their offense has done what's necessary of them. Sure.
So I guess the point of this question
they made the playoffs last season and got to the NFC Championship game on the backs of a surprising offense and a really good defense. Yes.
Yeah, but that offense was playing well.
I think there were times when that offense played well.
Oh my God, we can't talk about the Vikings. It's just amazing. Case Keenum had the best season that he will ever have in any. He hasn't played that well ever in his entire life. He was playing amazingly.
Right, but
Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen.
You're talking about
Kyle Rudolph was great.
You're talking about F prime when I'm talking about F.
Oh my God.
Case Keenum was an okay quarterback last year.
I apologize. Our video just got taken off YouTube because of false advertising. We were told there would be no calculus in this video. Okay, I do agree with you. I think the team that you didn't talk about that people probably still think has a chance at winning the Super Bowl that would fall into this category are the Bears. So I think if the Bears make it to the playoffs, I have zero faith that Trubisky is turning into a top 15 quarterback this season, despite his shredding of the Bucs, the mighty vaunted Bucs. So if they were to make it, I do think it would be because that defense turns into a legendary defense. That being said, I'm not betting on it, right? I'm taking Rodgers and I'm taking Cousins.
So there's a team that you are fond of that the Chicago Bears of 2018 remind me of, and that team is like the 2011 49ers. Like new coach.
Sure.
Defense is really good. Quarterback is improving, just trying to hang on. And you get in that playoff game, right? And they get in the playoffs against New Orleans, and they had to win based on their quarterback. You know, Alex Smith played the best game of his life against New Orleans. And then when they played the Giants in the NFC Championship game that year, the game like just stalled, to a crawl, right? I don't see Chicago being able to sort of lift themselves up and beat a team, especially now 7-8 years later, like New Orleans, like the Rams. I don't think their offense can keep up, and I don't think defenses nowadays can stop brilliant offenses in a meaningful way. So I find it hard to see Chicago doing anything, even if they get in the playoffs.
Fair. I agree. All right. Last question that we're going to try and hopefully answer by the end of this week. It's funny that we always try and answer these questions on Sunday night. It's like, yeah, kind of. I don't know. We're week 7.
What would have to happen this week for this answer to change?
So if Chicago's defense comes out and shuts Tom Brady down,
yep.
Right? Like if Khalil Mack was in fact injured last week, if it was hot in Miami, that's probably the warmest game they're playing the rest of the season, and their coverage stays intact, right? It doesn't get hurt and everything. Like, I don't know. That'd be the only.
I think the answer to this question actually pulls into this third question here, which is, will offensive football show signs of regression? If we see the Rams and the Saints and the Chiefs and Pittsburgh, those types of teams, the Patriots, if we see their offenses come back to earth a little bit over the course of this week and the next couple weeks, maybe then the answer to second question is more plausible because right now it just looks like no matter what you do to Kansas City, you force them to field goals, you intercept them, they're putting up 40. You know, same thing with New England, slow start. The Rams haven't played well the last 2 weeks and have still won. Like, I think that, you know, we need to see offenses regress before we're going to say anything about defenses, I think.
I agree. So will offenses show signs of regression this week?
So I think one of the things that's really buoyed the NFL right now is you're seeing some mid-level quarterbacks and some rookies play terrific, right? And it's really elevated the league as a whole. Andy Dalton, for example, is 6th among quarterbacks in PFF grade per snap. Like, he was not 6th last year. And so I think if you see him regress a little bit, then that's sort of more normal. Baker Mayfield's 7th in the NFL in PFF grade per snap as a quarterback. If you see that regress because of his offense being poor or him just regressing as a rookie, Cam Newton's 8th, right? And he's been a guy that both you and I have really struggled to watch in terms of his accuracy. If he goes down, then I think the league is more widely distributed, and maybe you start to see defense matter more.
Widely distributed. All right, let's go to a trend zone. This one's fun. So the Sunday night game this week is it was flexed, sadly. It was going to be Niners-Rams, which would have been a cool game. And then Jimmy G died. And now we get our Cincinnati Bengals versus the Kansas City Chiefs. So here's a nice little trend zone for you because Andy Dalton, he's probably not the greatest primetime quarterback in recent memory, but the Bengals as a whole have really struggled on Sunday night. So the Bengals in Sunday night games, they've played in 18. They are 3-15 overall. They have lost 8 straight. Their last victory was a 16-13 victory over the Dolphins in 2004. So,
was John Kitna the quarterback, or was that Palmer?
Oh wow, that's a good question.
I think it was Palmer. I think Palmer's first year was 04.
I loved Carson Palmer.
It was great.
So that's why they're 6.5. Are they 6? 6.5?
I think they're 6. We would put it at 6.5. It would appear not necessarily a pick on PFF, but a one where we would lean Kansas City for sure.
Yeah, that's gonna be if he comes out and throws like 4 picks. The thing is that Kansas City defense is so bad. Like Tyler Boyd, AJ Green. It's not as if the pass rush for Kansas City is the greatest thing in world history. So, I don't know. This could be a decent game for him. All right. Next up, we have a special edition of actually, I don't know what it's a special edition of. But the topic of this is the fade route. We've talked about it.
Questions from the dark web. This has been one, I think, where we've gotten – I think, were the first one to point this out, but we've gotten a lot of like tweets that have said – how bad is the fade route? What is, so this is like basically, how Barack Obama in his book had a composite girlfriend.
Sure.
This is a composite question from the dark web.
That's fair. All right. So does that mean we need just receiving word that Sampo Ranta, in fact, did come out with a new flavor this week? Sampo Ranta, of course, a sparkling water for men. Finally.
I mean, you have to.
It's about time. Sampo Ranta, new flavor for every week of the NFL season because they know that what men need is sparkling water and a new one every single week of the NFL season. And so their flavor this week is Kinky Kiwi because it's the time of the NFL season where you notice something that just gets you all hot and bothered and it gets you through the week. There's a few of those, one of which here is the fact that the fade sucks. So give you a broad painting of this picture. The fade route generates negative EPA every time it is thrown. The end zone fade. The only throw that is worse is the throwaway.
Yeah, right. So, and like, not only is so negative EPA is really impressive on a play inside the 5-yard line because there are other plays. And we wrote it up in the article. Go to ProFootballFocus.com. There's other routes that have less than 50% success rates, like that are completed less than 50% of the time. Those routes still have average positive EPA on them because it's so skewed near the end zone, right? It's everything's for the offense, but fades stand alone. In fact, fades are so bad, George, that running the football is a more efficient play.
That's all you need to know, right? The fade route completed about a 30% clip over the past, was it 4 or 5 years? Here's what I love about this, though. The fade route is like the ultimate big boy, I'm better than you route, right?
Yep.
My athleticism is better than your athleticism. So it's always, okay, we're going to put Des Bryant or put Calvin Johnson out here, and they're just going to own your cornerback. So when you're targeting the fade, you're generally like, okay, well, I'm targeting my best player. So that's what makes this the most hilarious. So I looked at all the guys that have 10 or more end zone fade targets, I think, over the past since 2014 or 2013 or whatever it was. So this list, DeAndre Hopkins, Des Bryant, Brandon Marshall, Jimmy Graham, A.J. Green, Calvin Johnson, Alshon Jeffrey, Michael Crabtree, Julio Jones, some people will laugh, Larry Fitzgerald, and Rob Gronkowski. Pretty decent group, you'd say?
Yeah, they're above average.
Above average. Completion rate, throwing end zone fades to that group, 32.7%. 72.9 passer rating when targeting those guys on end zone fades. So the moral of the story, do not throw end zone fades.
I mean, we opened the article with this, but basically, like, it is a really impressive play, right? You're talking about a guy basically using basketball athleticism to go up and get the ball, or a quarterback making a sort of a perfect throw to a receiver, and that's super impressive. But as we said about, like, Saquon Barkley, for example, what's impressive is not necessarily valuable, right? And football is like this game.
Had to bring some Saquon hate
football,
in here, man.
Football. Fade the fade, shade the fade, all the aids. So yeah, I think, you know, we have to, when you're watching football, it's always fun to look at something that requires a lot of good football that doesn't end up being that valuable. The one other thing I think about is
Eric telling you how to watch football.
Hey, outside zone, for example,
Coming
is another
from
one.
a guy that
like,
can't even pick a shirt in the morning. Just unbelievable.
I can pick a shirt. People hate on the shirt. The shirt's good. The shirt is a good shirt.
Okay, so this is a great segue by me. If you want to see this shirt, which you do, believe you me. No. Leave it on. No, leave it on. We're going to make people go watch the college pick of the week, which this week, we're not going to talk about this a lot because you should go check out the video, but it is NC State, Clemson, 17.5. I'm not going to tell you what it is right now. You want to go check it out, but mostly because you'll get to see Eric's shirt. NC State, Clemson should be a fun game to watch, actually. Trevor Lawrence, Ryan Finley. Finley's a pretty good quarterback, so you'll want to check that out. College pick of the week on the PFF TV/YouTube channel, wherever fine videos are sold. All right, before we get into our NFL picks, I'm going to go ahead and get on to mybookie.ag. The reason being is that I'd be an idiot if I decided to go through picks without being able to make an investment right at that moment. Mybookie.ag, they have every pick you could possibly, or every bet you could possibly want, spreads, totals, even futures on Super Bowl. We have a video out on that. You should go check it out. They make it pretty easy to cash out, which is awesome. And if you use promo code PFF, you can get a $1 match on your first deposit. So I'm on MyBookie. You should be on MyBookie. Make it happen. PFF plus MyBookie. You play, you win, you get paid. All right. Let's kick it off here. Let's start with the Thursday night game. The Denver Broncos are going to Arizona. Okay. They are favorites in Arizona. Am I an idiot for thinking this is ridiculous? I think this is absurd.
Yeah, I mean, so you're basically saying that Denver is 4 points better than Arizona on a neutral field. We would probably put it more as like a pick 'em, maybe even shade the Cardinals.
It's first off, it's -2 on MyBookie. Denver is -2.
Yeah, so from that perspective, it's been, and this number has bounced around a little bit. If you go on Greenline, for example, it's moved its way around quite a bit with things about injuries to the Broncos secondary, but also we have a few players out for the Cardinals. So one of the interesting things, obviously we're going to have the Cardinals here, but one of the interesting things that I look at that is a bit counterintuitive to me, the total here is about 42.5, and we would like the over in this one. George, what do you think?
I don't hate it. One of the reasons I don't dislike the over at all is that both of these offensive lines are bad. Case Keenum is bad. And Josh Rosen, while I don't think he's bad, is going to be under pressure a ton. So the chance for a defensive touchdown or just short fields created by the defense, I think, is highly plausible. So I do like this game quite a bit. Let's stay. I actually want to stay in the on the West. I want to go to Niners-Rams. Throw a little curveball
which
here.
is a game that we do not have a pick against spread or over-under. However, you've been waxing poetic about the 49ers over the last...
CJ Beathard, man.
Well, so this is an interesting one. I'd have to look it up. It probably...
By the way, it's 10 on my bookie.
Yeah, it's probably not something that has happened very often. The Rams are on their third consecutive road game right now. It'll be their third consecutive road game where they're favored by a touchdown or more.
Yep.
If the Niners can pull off a cover as they did last week against the Green Bay Packers, which we had as one of our picks, I would say that would be also the third consecutive games the Rams did not cover that number. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think the 49ers put together a pretty good performance Monday night offensively. I'm interested to see if they can repeat that because they had a good offensive performance against the Chargers, poor against Arizona, good against Green Bay. It's kind of hit or miss with them.
There's been some talk about what the Niners did against the Packers to sort of stymie their play action game would work against the Rams and like how interesting that'll be. What's hilarious about that is that it's like the assumption that Sean McVay he's not going to watch any tape between now and then. He won't be prepared. He's going to be totally caught off guard by what the Niners did last week on Monday night. That is hilarious. Sean McVay will not be caught off guard.
Niners on a short week is another interesting thing here.
Did you know that the Rams run 11 personnel like all the time? Did you know this?
I did, actually.
Is it amazing? I'm just surprised you're not taking off articles of clothing right now.
Well, I have such a great article of clothing, I would not discard it.
Sweating everywhere.
So the total here is interesting because it was like 50 right early on in the week, and now it's 52, which is exactly what our number is.
Yeah.
I do think that the Rams defense can continue to be had. I think the only reason the Rams did not lose in Denver last week was how poor Case Keenum could play. Was able to put it together. So. The Niners have a lot of speed offensively. They mix things up quite a bit. I do think that they'll have some success, and their defense, as you said, is not going to be able. Like the difference between how McVay and McCarthy is.
Well,
it's as big as McCarthy is.
So this was the interesting thing that our buddy Justice wrote up in his piece.
Yeah.
About the Rams and their offense. The fact that they run play action from under center, like. Okay, that I think for a lot of people is like surprising, but like the Eagles do that every single time they're under center, which isn't that much. But what I thought was so interesting about that was the way that their play action game moves from deep to short, being basically the opposite of what the Packers do, which is, let's look at the slant flat, let's look at it again. If it's not open, let's consider just taking a knee, moving on to the next play. If that is not advantageous, we'll think about it again, and then we'll go deep, right? So it's basically like unless Aaron Rodgers creates something, they're not looking deep, whereas Jared Goff, when he runs play action, I feel like every time I watch a Rams game, I see the same play happen 90% of the time, which is play action, deep crosser over the middle. Like it just happens with such regularity. It's unbelievable. Their offense is fantastic. And I think you mentioned this, right? The 11 personnel thing, I think, it's just a function of the coach understanding who their strongest players are and keeping them on the field, and the fact that Todd Gurley is a guy you don't need to take off the field, and their tight ends suck, so why would you put two of them out there? But what's cool about that is that Sean McVay is not trying to do too much, right? It's the acknowledgement of this is our best personnel. We can be creative without switching players in and out, right? It allows you to go no huddle, do all these things that kind of keep the defense off balance, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's one of those where it seems like a team like Green Bay just gives defenses breaks for no reason, right? You saw the slant flat concept. As long as the defense can make a tackle,
need more of it.
There's not a
where is that? Sorry, I'm cutting you off. Where can people read that piece?
It's on Optimum Scouting.
Yeah, so go check it out. That was
cool.
That was awesome. He's a good dude. All right, next game. Where do you want to go?
Oh man, let's go to. Because I'm going to get flack for this. I might as well get it out of the way. Let's go to New York or New Jersey, East Rutherford.
Unique New York.
and talk about the
Give it to me. No,
the
God,
Vikings.
Let's talk about the Vikings.
3.5 point favorites at New York.
Can we put a timer on
Why is this only 3.5?
1 minute. Go.
No, why is this only
I don't
3.5?
care.
God. All right, fine. Well,
Why is this 3.5?
why is this only 3.5?
Because it's Kirk Cousins on the road. The Jets just won a couple of games at home. The Vikings have a bad offensive line. I don't know. That's probably why it's 3.5. I don't hate the Jets here. 3.5 is a lot. That's saying the Vikings are 6.5 points better than the Jets on neutral field, which I think is
Going into the season, though, what would this spread be, you think?
Probably 5.
Okay. All right, so have the Vikings.
But see, I hate when you do this because we're 6 weeks into the season.
Right, but
Let's ignore everything we've learned about.
Right,
both
but
these
what have
teams.
we learned about the Vikings is my question. Are they
That Kirk Cousins, as you said 5 hours ago when we first talked about them on this podcast, has been amazing under pressure, 92.6 passer rating. That is sure to regress. Their offensive line, as I said 7.5 hours ago on this podcast, is made of tinfoil, and it's in New Jersey. Kirk Cousins doesn't strike me.
I just wonder.
He's over there grilling steaks medium well on the Lake Minnetonka shores. He's not ready for Jersey. He's not ready for the Jersey Shore.
All right. I feel it's weird. We actually like the Jets a little bit here.
The Jets are the right side of this pick, for sure. All right, we are over a minute, so we are moving on from that horrible, terrible game. Thank you, Matt. Let's go to Jacksonville. Houston, they are getting 5. Let me actually check.
Talk about two teams that are
I could be tempted to place a bet right now.
Yeah, so Jacksonville's a 5-point
Good
favorite
news,
at home.
5.5 on my bookie. Yeah. We like Houston here. I think all of the fundamentals say Houston is the right pick. It is the right side. But the whole motivation factor for the Jaguars, their defense has just been grilled a couple of times. They're still incredibly talented. They are weaker at some spots, but the Texans are beat up, man. So those two things worry me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that their advantage with being able to stress defenses with DeAndre Hopkins as well as Will Fuller and Kiki Kuti, all three of those guys are questionable, which is tough, right? But I think Jacksonville last week was really they were targeted not only in the run game but also in the slot cornerback with Tyler Patman. So their defense is a little bit I think down. My concern is that Watson has been pressured so much this year. And Jacksonville, that's like when the Saxonville came out last year against Houston in week 1. I wonder like how much of an opportunity Watson is going to be able to get to be a player that I think is graded pretty well this year. Especially, I think he's first among quarterbacks in positively graded percentage on dropbacks. So are we going to be able to see that, or is he just going to be under siege the entire time?
Right. I wish I knew how healthy he was, because he clearly was not healthy in last week's game. There's no shot, and he apparently had some sort of lung issue. That doesn't strike me as something that just like, I'm not a doctor, but strike me as something that all of a sudden heals rather quickly. Though I think Houston again is the right side. Not in love with it, but I think it's the right side of that game. Next game up.
Let's go to Tampa Bay on purpose.
Really?
Yep. So Tampa Bay is a 3.5 point favorite on the consensus line. We would shade a little bit towards Cleveland here.
God help us all.
How do you feel about that?
I never feel great about Cleveland. I feel better about Cleveland after they lost a game. That, I knew that something was a little fishy after they had won a game. They're not going to react well to that. I can tell you that right now. Here's what worries me about this, is that what we saw with the Bears going into Miami and not being prepared for the heat, you could not convince me that the Browns are going to be prepared for this. Like, you could tell me anything you want, I would not believe it about the Browns being ready for the heat and humidity of Tampa Bay. And the Bucs offense is solid.
Very good.
So if the Browns are sort of affected by the heat and unable to take advantage of the Bucs defense, could be in for a long game.
Here's a wonky thing about this game. Baker Mayfield, 7.4% of his passes have been big time throws. 2.8 have been turnover worthy.
38.3 passer rating under pressure.
Jameis Winston, about 1.4 of his passes have been big-time throws. Almost 7% have been turnover worthy. Like, those are unstable things, so you'd imagine they regress. But if they stay the same in this game, there's a legitimate shot that the Cleveland Browns end up winning this game outright.
But how many of Baker's great throws have just been dropped?
Oh, right. I mean,
and Jameis, the big-time throw turnover-worthy play thing, that's less than 10% of your throws total. Yeah. So there's this huge swath of your throws that are not encapsulated by that. And Jameis is making a crap ton of positively graded throws. The guy has actually been pretty good since coming back. Not quite Fitzmagic worthy, but pretty close.
He's been worth a few crab legs, lobsters, things like that.
Nice. All right, let's do 2 more. Let's talk about. Oh man, let's talk. Fine, let's talk about Indy Buffalo.
I mean, yeah. So Buffalo is getting 7.5 in Indy. Buffalo was
lovely Indianapolis.
Buffalo was getting 10 last week. We loved Buffalo last week. They almost gave it up, but they ended up covering. Derek Anderson's the quarterback.
This is great. The Bills have had the worst quarterback play in the NFL this season, and it's not particularly close. Josh Allen is the second lowest graded quarterback. Nathan Peterman, in 50 snaps, was like the 3rd worst ever on just total negative, disgusting horribleness. Like, he was god awful. So Derek Anderson just has to be not the worst quarterback in the NFL, and their offense takes a huge jump against the defense in the Colts that is not great. It's like 27th in pressure rate, 5th highest in terms of EPA allowed for defenses on passing plays. So, or sorry, I said that wrong. They're like, it's early down passing plays is what we were talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. So Derek Anderson should be in a spot where he can be successful, and the Bills' defense is solid.
Yeah, Anderson had, we basically replaced, Allen with a replacement level / Derek Anderson level quarterback, and the model moved towards Buffalo. Let's just put it that way. So that's something to note here.
It's like the Browns with Kaiser last year. You just put in an average replacement player, not average, a replacement player.
You look at the 4 units here. Buffalo's defense is clearly the best of the 4 units.
You're just writing off special teams. It's hurtful.
It is hurtful, truthful, but so I like that aspect of it. I like the fact that Andrew Luck actually has more turnover worthy plays than big time throws this year. Buffalo could capitalize on some of those. Luck is also kind of that high variance player that was like Deshaun Watson, who the Buffalo Bills contained last week. The receivers for Indianapolis, even with T.Y. back, nowhere near as good as those for Houston, again, who Buffalo kind of handled last week. This one's a completely hold your nose, don't watch the game, blah, blah, blah. But I think this is probably the best one of the week in terms of a pick, not a game to watch.
7.5 is too much. It's just too much. The Colts are fine, but they should not be favored by more than a touchdown against the Bills are a real team because they actually have a unit that is comprised of real NFL players. And people may forget that Derek Anderson has a connection with tight end Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah, and McDermott's a really good defensive mind. I mean, there's sort of no way we would dismiss that. I think he's probably as good of a defensive mind as Frank Reich is an offensive mind. The total 43.5.
It's the under. This is one of those ones where I think the under is a decent play. I'm never betting an under, but. Yeah, sure. The reason that's useful is that you say, look, there's a good chance this game is low scoring, whether you're just looking at the Vegas total or what we have on Greenline, and that means that winning by more than 7 is unlikely for either side, obviously. So I like the Bills here. I might sprinkle a little bit on the Bills' money line just because I think they have a legit shot of winning this game. As much as I love Andrew Luck, he has not been great. His pass rating from a clean pocket, 97.3.
Yeah, the Colts and the Falcons were 2 teams we were relatively high on that have not produced so far.
Let's talk about the Falcons. At home, Monday Night Football. Tess, Boog, Witt in the booth. So, Boog, what do you think?
This number has moved towards the Giants. It was 5.5. Now it's 4.5. We like Atlanta.
I just like to see Saquon Barkley pull a rabbit out of his head here.
Yeah, it'd be a giant rabbit out of his head.
This is now 4.5. It is moving a little bit today, it looks like, towards the G-men. And I've got to imagine the reason behind this is the Falcons' defense not great. And Saquon Barkley figures to be a guy that could take advantage of them. I will remind you of this. Saquon Barkley took advantage of the Eagles at home. I think that's the thing to remember is the key here is that Eli Manning is not good. Saquon Barkley was incredible in that game. He torched everyone every time he touched the ball, and they got shellacked. So unless Eli Manning all of a sudden finds a way to hit Odell Beckham deep a couple of times, that's worrisome to me. And I think the idea that this is a must-win game for the Giants, it has been a must-win game for the Giants for a while. Every game for the Falcons is a must-win game.
Yeah.
I may have some questions about Dan Quinn. Not one of them is that he is like not aware of the state of his team in terms of needing to win a game or not. So
yeah, I think the Falcons have been much improved from their coaching standpoint, from their analytics standpoint, et cetera, since week one. The thing that I want to maybe ask here, we obviously like Atlanta. We're low on the Giants. We're high on Atlanta, seemingly in perpetuity. The over here, 54.5. With all the things you said about Eli Manning.
Give me the over. Why? Because Eli Manning will probably throw one to a Falcons player. He's also – they've got to just use a couple of trick plays here, right? They did that against the Panthers, Carolina. And I don't know why they didn't do it against the Eagles, but you got to figure they pull out everything. And the Falcons' offense is unstoppable.
Yeah, well, especially by a Giants defense who, like Alec Ogletree, good luck against those running backs, and their cornerbacks have not played
Ito
as well
Smith, baby.
As well as they did in 2016 when they were a surprise playoff team.
Yeah, the Falcons are scoring a lot of points in this game. All right, before we get out of here, I want to talk about two games, neither of which we have a pick on, but are the two best games of the week, and I just don't want to not talk about these games. So let's go to Chicago first. Bears-Patriots, a matchup of Brady versus this Bears defense. We talked about this game a little bit earlier. The Patriots are favored by 3 in this game. We don't have a pick on it, but which side would be the right side in your opinion?
Yeah, so I mean, our numbers would shade Chicago, but it's really hard for me to take a Brady Belichick team against an up and coming team that thinks they're good, right? It's hard for me to go against New England in this case, right? It seems like every single time a team has tried to pop up and be something in this NFL, the New England Kansas City last week, New England has come in and knocked them down a peg. So I don't know, like against the spread, it might be hard because we saw it last week that 3 is a number, but I think the Patriots win this game. I don't think there's really not a doubt in my mind, but and they probably do cover here. Mitch Trubisky still has the same number of positively graded throws this year as negatively graded throws. That simply doesn't happen. He has more turnover, same amount of turnover-worthy plays as big-time throws. Again, that doesn't happen very often. So, yeah, man, Patriots here.
At 3, much less worried about 3 than I would be 3.5. The reason I think the Patriots are the right side here, and the reason I think they're the right side, and I'm going to be wrong for sure, but Mitch Trubisky against Bill Belichick is a huge mismatch. I know there will be the narrative of Matt Nagy, he's an Andy Reid guy. Andy Reid has had success against Bill Belichick. Andy Reid had Pat Mahomes. Different planet. They're different species. All right? Mitch Trubisky is going to struggle against Bill Belichick. I have zero doubt about that. If Bill could scheme up a couple of ints against Pat Mahomes, he's getting Trubisky a couple times. Trubisky's had one good game, and it was against the Bucs, who fired their defensive coordinator because their defense was so terrible. That was his only good game. That was it. He's been a travesty in every other situation. So I think he makes him get to his second read a bunch. I am not bullish on Mitch Trubisky on his second read in any shape or form. So I think that's the right side. And I think the narrative of Sorry, I'm trying to stop saying I think so much. I finally caught myself saying it.
You should be more millennial-like and say I feel.
Don't have feelings, so that's a problem.
Yeah.
But the narrative of offenses are dictating everything continues. I believe it with every fiber of my being, and so that continues in this game. And the Patriots dictate how this game moves. Right, that game last week was dictated by the offense on each side, and it will be again this week.
Speaking of something that could bust that narrative, Ravens at home against New Orleans.
You're forgetting what I said we were talking about. We were talking about the 2 best games of the week.
Ravens Saints isn't one of the best games of the week. We missed.
You don't like Chiefs Bengals on Sunday night?
As big of a Chiefs fan as I am, I actually think the Ravens Saints is a better game, and we were totally crossed there. Okay, all right, let's go
Great.
Chiefs.
Can't wait to talk about the Ravens.
Well, because in this game, actually, our only pick is the under.
Okay.
And New Orleans and unders is kind of like rough to. So this is basically
Let's talk
implying
about this one.
that the Ravens are going to dictate this game a little bit.
Breeze versus the Ravens.
Right. Because it's a compelling matchup. You have
Compelling and rich.
Baltimore has probably the best defense in the NFL. The Saints have one of the best offenses, if not the best offense, and a defense that has been shaky at times. Saints coming off of a bye, Ravens coming off of a big road win. So I think a compelling matchup here.
So would you take the under then if it's at 50?
I think I actually would. I think the Ravens are not going to put up their end of the bargain because I just don't think that they have the explosive wide receivers and running game, running backs out of the backfield that you need to exploit the Saints. And I think the Saints are going to very much, use Mark Ingram the same way that they did on that Monday night against Washington. And I think the Ravens, secondary, if any secondary can match up with the Saints, I think it's theirs.
Yes, I agree. This is tough because the Saints are so good at putting their best players at the other team's weakest point. Yeah. So I think they will have success doing that again. And their defense, a little banged up. It's very tough.
Yeah.
Very tough. But 50 is a high number. So if I were tempted to bet any under this week, this would be the one that I would go for. And you're right. This is the second best game. Cincy, Kansas City, we talked about this. The trend zones never fail. Andy Dalton's going to struggle. And that spread's way big anyway. So I think you're right. We're going to wrap this up, but I just want to see if I was right about Mitch Trubisky here. I have this feeling that when he gets to his second read, he's not great.
What about when he throws left?
Also bad. All right. Here's your list of guys with a turnover-worthy play rate of over 10% when they move to their second read. Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, Josh Allen, Ben Roethlisberger, Sam Bradford, and Mitchell Trubisky. So there you have it. That is this week's forecast. Again, check in with us on Sunday night, Monday morning really, but we will be grinding on Sunday night to get you guys early look ahead lines. Check out profootballfocus.com for all of our content, and of course, visit mybookie.ag. See you guys on the flip side.